We are in the room where it all takes place for the ministerial settings. We are here at the 19th Conference of Commonwealth Education Ministers, and it's regarded as the largest Commonwealth ministerial meeting. And I'm here with the Commonwealth Secretary General, His Excellency Kamlesh Sharma, and we're going to talk about what takes place in this room. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you.
It's a pleasure to be here. This is my third visit to the Bahamas, and it was a wonderful moment when Bahamas offered at the last meeting 3 years ago in Mauritius to host this and to bring the education ministers meeting back to the Caribbean after 25 years.
Well, the ministers have been hard at it for the past 2 days, long sessions, long days, but a lot on the agenda and a lot of very pressing issues that the Commonwealth wants to address as it relates to education. Based on what you've heard here and your interaction with the ministers, what would you say is the most pressing issue regarding education as it relates for the Commonwealth?
What is it that education means for the society as a whole? There's no subject which we have in ministerials which is so central to all your other goals than getting education right. Whether it's pre-primary, primary, secondary, tertiary, skills, job development, all of it. And particularly here in the Caribbean, we know that there are particular challenges with the discrepancy which is arising in education between girls and boys, the need to create jobs and employment opportunities. All of this will impinge upon those policies.
In essence, you've just said there's a correlation between education and the other outputs or social outputs within a society. How do we get citizens to understand that correlation and to buy into exactly what ministers of education are hoping to achieve?
Today's world is such, thanks to the connectivity that arises, that so much can be gained by connecting the Commonwealth. We are very proud of our convening power. But this convening power has to be modernized and made contemporary. It's astonishing, if you know what's happening in another country, how much of an empowerment it is for what you yourself are able to do. And we are a diverse organization, 53 countries from all over the world. When we even share experience actually of what we are doing, it lifts the possibilities for all the participants. But more than that, we can decide, and the communique will show it, what is it that we precisely want to do together in moving forward.
When the minister spoke at the opening ceremony, he said that whatever policies are decided upon need to be placed into action. And a lot of people feel that, we have these conferences and policy is formulated, but you don't see the results of it. How do we ensure that the policy is enacted, becomes alive, and people can actually benefit from what would have taken place here?
I think the way the communique, the ministerial statement, is going to be drafted would be in very actionable ways. This is what we propose to do in the field of education, whether it is impacting on employment, whether it is impacting on the phenomenon of extremism and radicalization, how it is impacting on entrepreneurship potential, curriculum development, which we can all share with each other, the best practices that we have. Above all, the hub which has been created, the Commonwealth Education Hub in this conference, has been a great enabler and a great boost to all forms of cooperation, because it enables continuity between ministerials. Our ministerials are held every 3 years. There's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of action possibilities builds up, and then you have to capture it. You have to make sure that there is a group which is making sure that all this is happening. Now that we have Commonwealth Connects as a platform, and on Commonwealth Connects you can create this hub, which has already started functioning. Some of the work we did on the hub was in preparation for this conference, this has become a great tool and a facilitator for collaboration and results throughout the Commonwealth.
You know, this is an important meeting. You've mentioned that the education ministers meet every 3 years, but this is at a critical time for the world because we're nearing the end of the Millennium Development Goals and we're embarking on the Sustainable Development Goals. And the policies and the framework that would have been created in 2000, we're now at the post-2015 era. What does that mean and what does it signify for the Commonwealth and the direction of education for the next 15 years?
I think it was decided by the ministers that they are going to look at what they can do collectively to give body and success to the Sustainable Development Goals that will be accepted by the world community towards the end of the year. But one thing which gives us a lot of confidence that this can be done is that the Education Ministers' Conference is unique in one respect, which is the parallel events that take place, the way it embraces every actor and not just the governments. For instance, you have a youth forum, you have a teachers forum. There's a lot of discussion how you can lift the confidence, experience, and contribution of teachers and be responsive to that. There's a stakeholders forum, and there is the vice chancellors are part of the stakeholders forum. And there is, of course, the intergovernmental aspect. And there are other stakeholders, institutions and organizations that are present, introducing themselves. In other words, we are moving across a broad front. We're not just saying that here we are, governments, we've decided the following. But what about the ownership of these ideas among those people who, in the end, together with governments, are responsible for moving it forward?
How do ministers ensure that what they would have learned here, what they would have received here, is carried out, particularly when ministerial posts are political and there's that possibility that a minister's term may end very shortly or may go for a long time? How do they then package the information to make sure that there's continuity within their ministries even after they may have demitted office?
There are two aspects to it. One is national and one is collective. Ministers sitting here, it's fascinating because very often the contributions say, that's very interesting what I've just heard because that's very relevant for me. In other words, they learn something which they implement when they go home. The collective one is, this needs to be done. If all of us join hands, then we can create the product which all of us can use. As for the point that you have raised about continuity, a working group of ministerials for the first time is going to be created at this conference. And the chair of the Commonwealth Education Ministers meeting will, together with the former chair of the meeting and the future chair of the meeting as a troika, together supervise that the action which they had undertaken to do is actually being done. So it doesn't go by name, it goes by position. If a minister changes, then the next minister takes over and does exactly the same thing. But because it's being done on a wider front as a troika, working with the Secretariat, it is absolutely certain that individual personalities are not going to matter that much.
Well, you've mentioned chair, and our minister, the Honorable Jerome Fitzgerald, is the chair for this Ccem as host minister. How has that experience been working alongside him as the chair in these ministerials?
Well,
meetings?
he's been an outstanding chair, as I told him, because he does things with very light touch. He encourages others to join in. And the minister is not simply going through the motions of one agenda item after another, because it's very clear from his responses, he's been hearing, listening to everybody, and this draws in other people because they feel that something is arising from this discussion. It's just not everyone's point of view, and let's move forward. And he's extremely, extremely skilled at doing this. But above all, a chair must observe the discipline of the clock. And there's hardly been any session, in fact, no session, which hasn't, despite all the richness of the contribution, which hasn't adhered to the time laid down for it. In fact, on the second day, it's probably unique in the history of this conference, the day's proceedings ended half an hour before.
Wow. Before we go, I want to talk about this conference's theme, quality education for equitable development, performance paths, and productivity. And the Deputy Secretary General, Deodat Maraj, mentioned that silent and fourth P, which is partnership. How can we take this theme and make it relevant to our citizens for them to understand the power and the purpose, and I'll add 2 more Ps, behind this year's theme?
The partnerships are absolutely crucial these days because you can't, work on a lonely furrow of your own. All your achievements in today's world are connected with each other. And for an organization like the Commonwealth, which is modestly funded and modestly sized, but has huge resources of respect and credibility in this world, it's obvious that you move in partnership with other organizations, whether regional and your own, or other international organizations, because we're all concerned about the future of the world in the same way. And this point was repeatedly made, that if this is your goal, and I have completely endorsed it, look at the partners you can work with. So that is the way we work. Now, I've always said we must develop a nervous system for the Commonwealth. And I think in this conference we have developed a very vibrant nervous system in the field of education.
Well, you've attended many ministerial meetings as Secretary General. Explain your experience here and the logistical and even the human aspect of it with the Bahamas being the host of
Well,
this.
I think it's been an eye-opener for many people because Bahamas is a small state. And I think most of the people were visiting the Bahamas for the first time. So whatever the impression was of what they would expect to find in a small state has not really been quite like that. Because the facilities which you see here, the fact that you're all living close by, and you're all living in an environment which is full of warmth, and full of the world of Bahamas surrounding them, all of this has been very, very favorably noticed and commented upon by them. This facility is world-class facility by any standards. So it just shows that you may be a small state, but you can be world-class and be equal to international standards. So it is an example of what can be achieved, which is being given here by the Bahamas.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to sit and chat with you. It's been a very enlightening and delightful conversation. Well, the 19th Conference of Commonwealth Education Ministers has one more day to go, and of course, tomorrow we will hear the communique, and that will summarize all that's happened in the ministerial settings, and it will chart the course for the next 15 years. And like our Excellency said, education is paramount to the growth and development and advancement of any country, and so we need the partnership of everybody, every single citizen of every single country of the Commonwealth, if we are to achieve the desired goals. And of course, who's at stake? Our children. Education really affects our children. They are who we cater to from pre-primary straight on to tertiary level. And so if we want the world to be a better place, we must focus on education at every level and in every aspect. And that's what they're hoping to achieve here, to find relevant and practical means of advancing education and making it everyone's business.